Hello and welcome to the Oxford Clay Pottery Podcast. I'm Catherine Tomlinson and I founded Oxford Clay, an eco-conscious pottery company. So on this podcast, we're going to be talking about all things pottery related, often with an eco-conscious twist, and I can't wait to share it with you. Let's go. Hello, I'm Catherine from Oxford Clay, and really excited to be back on the Oxford Clay podcast. And I wanted to talk to you about something quite special today. I wanted to talk to you about four surprising things that I've learned from pottery, that pottery can teach us, in my opinion, just kind of in general, which aren't actually pottery related, but they're kind of almost like ways of being, things that could get cultivated in you from doing pottery. So, okay, so let's start and see what you think. So, the first one I'm going to say is patience. And honestly, I think if anything cultivates patience in you, it's pottery. Because so when I think back to when I first started pottery and I was doing evening classes, and every week I'd make make and then I would wrap it up in plastic and put it in the damp cupboard, and then the next week I'd come get my thing out of the cupboard, and either it would be too wet to do anything with. If I made a pot on the wheel, it would be too wet and I couldn't turn the base of the pot because it wasn't leather hard yet. Or it'd be too dry. It'd be completely bone dry and I couldn't do anything to it. I just have to throw it away. So clay is just going to go the speed it wants to go, drying wise, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's pottery is quite often just about waiting and waiting for the next stage. And another thing that always makes me think about cultivating patience in pottery is the kiln. It takes days to heat up, and then it takes days to cool down, and you just you say you're experimenting, you've got maybe a new glaze you're experimenting with, and you just want to open the kiln, but no, you can't. You've got to wait days. You've got to wait days for it to heat up. You've got to wait days for it to cool down, and then you can see your thing. So yeah, I think pottery is basically all about patience and having to wait for the next thing. Clay's just going to go the speed it wants to go at, and there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to work with it, basically. So so I think patience is a really key skill in pottery, and I really think pottery cultivates patience. Okay, so the next thing I think that pottery really cultivates is persistence. And the reason I'm saying this is because I think quite often when you start trying to make pottery, you have this idea. Well, I know I did. I used to go in. I used to have ideas with what I wanted to make, and I'd be I had this, I'd have this vision, and then I would try and make the thing, and it was I didn't have the technical skills to be able to make the, what was in my mind. But also quite often when I sort of tried to make stuff, things would maybe go wrong, say something cracked or it wasn't joined properly, or I was still really learning how to kind of work with clay, and how clay behaved basically at the different stages. So I really think that there's nothing that really can circumvent that. You have to just kind of go through it, with persistence. So it's all about really just carrying on. So things going wrong, just carrying on, and just kind of keeping on practicing and keeping on working through. So, they talk about a growth mindset, and pottery, is there anything that would cultivate more of a growth mindset than pottery? It's nobody knows how to do pottery when they first start. You literally have to learn. So the growth mindset is all about knowing that you can only really get things right by kind of failing and making mistakes and learning from those, and kind of just being resilient, carrying on, and keeping on learning, even though nobody just knows how to do something straight away. And it's this idea that you can cultivate any knowledge just by persistence and practice. Which brings us on to the next point. So point number 3 is, I think pottery really cultivates resilience, and I think this is because there's so much kind of disappointment involved in pottery. Now, this sounds really negative, but like, hear me out. Basically, I think pottery is a kind of real practice in kind of things not necessarily measuring up to how you had it in your mind. So like I was saying to you, like, you've got this vision, this beautiful pot, and then it goes into the kiln. You've done everything right. You've glazed it in this glaze. You looked at the little glaze tile, at your pottery class, and you're like, I want it to be this color. It's going to come out like it's great. And then you get it out the kiln, and you see it on the shelf. You're like, that's not my pot, surely. And and you're like, no, that's horrible. And it's like, just this kind of this idea that basically, that you can be disappointed by your work, and that like you have to just kind of like, you have to face these constant kind of like slight disappointments about like how you expected things to be, and you have to be kind of like resilient and just go on to the next thing and just think, oh well, that one didn't work out how I thought it was going to work out, and then I'm just going to try again. And it's almost like the happiness really is in the process, not as in like the result, So yeah, I think the resilience to kind of keep on going in the face of disappointment when things didn't go as you hoped. I think pottery is just so good for cultivating that. Which brings us on to the fourth and final surprising thing that I've actually learned from pottery, and that is accepting imperfection. So I think if you're the kind of person that like you think, if I learn how to do something, I'll learn how to do it, and then I'll be able to do it, and then it will kind of like go as planned, and it will be like as good as it can be, and like dare I say it, as perfect as I want to make it, sort of thing. Like, but the thing is with pottery is that there are so many factors involved, like random factors that you don't have any control over. Say like what your pot is next to in the kiln, or how like just mysterious things that happen in the kiln. So you can only control so much basically, and your pot might go in how you expect, and it might come out your idea of like imperfect. And accepting imperfection is such a kind of key tool really in pottery. And pots aren't meant to be perfect. There is so much beauty in like the imperfection. And I just want to read you something actually. So this is one of my favourite books actually. It's by Beth Kempton, and it's a book called Wabi Sabi, Japanese Wisdom for a Perfectly Imperfect Life. And in this book, Beth Kempton, she just talks about the Japanese concept of wabi sabi, and how it really just kind of permeates all of Japanese life. And she just talks about all the different aspects of wabi sabi, and kind of like what it means, and just how we can apply it really to our own lives. Beth Kempton, in this part, she's just talking about pottery. She actually mentions pottery a lot in this book, because I think, just talking about imperfection, I think pottery is a real kind of like great example, really, of wabi sabi. So let me just read you this passage. So this is what she writes. The Japanese believe that the harder something is to learn, and the more effort that is required to learn it, the more valuable the knowledge or the skill. In Japan, form is everything. This is true both in the handcrafting of items, which explains why artisans will take decades before they truly recognise their own skill, and in their attitude to life, which explains much of the formality and ritual in Japanese life. Potter Makiko Hastings described how she strives to improve the form of her craft without ever expecting to attain absolute perfection. She knows that imperfection is the true nature of things, so she works at edging closer to the best she can do and be, without a false expectation of where she will end up. So, like, what a great lesson, for us to be able to emulate, that Potter, Makiko Hastings. So, a bit later on, Beth Kempton talks about excellence over perfection. So she says, when the notion of excellence is used as an aspirational motivator, it can be hugely valuable. This is in stark contrast to working towards an elusive goal of perfection with the expectation that we will arrive, burning ourselves out as we relentlessly push on forward and ending up disappointed because the destination was never reachable in the first place. So, I mean, what a better way to teach us that than pottery? Because, you know, it's not really about the end goal, and it will never be perfect, you know, your pot. So, well, yours might be, but mine certainly are not. So it's, you know, I'm gonna, like, I love that idea, like keeping it in your mind of like excellence over perfection, and you know, it's more about kind of like really enjoying the process of making rather than like this idea that it has to be perfect at the end. And like Beth Kempton also, she talks about how there is actually a lot of beauty in imperfection. So I just want to read you a little tiny bit more of this this book. So this bit's titled Seeing the Beauty in Imperfection. When a potter makes a series of handcrafted pots, they are not aiming for perfection in terms of symmetry and uniformity, or else they would use a machine. They aim for natural beauty, the mark of the hand and the infusion of the heart. We are not supposed to be flawless and uniform, as if we have come out of a people factory. What if you imagined yourself as a beautiful handcrafted pot, lovingly shaped and appreciated because of, not in spite of, your imperfections? Oh, I love it. So yeah, I mean, that just sums it up really, doesn't it? Like, you know, the heart that potters put into their work, and that really coming through in the inverted commas imperfections of their work. So yeah, I really wanted to read you that because I just think it's so good, and I do try and carry those things with me, like when I'm making stuff, and not to get too like hung up on like the absolutely perfect outcome, you know. So yeah, I hope you found that useful. Let's go over the 4 things that pottery can teach us, surprising things that pottery can teach us that are actually kind of nothing to do with pottery. So number 1, patience. So much waiting in pottery, waiting. Yeah, need I say more? Cultivating patience. Persistence. So the persistence to, you know, keep on practicing, the persistence to, you know, keep on going even if things are hard, you know, to kind of like keep on trying even though things like aren't working the way you want, your technical skills just, you know, you're having to keep on practicing those. Yeah, persistence. And number 3 is resilience. So that is like, you know, in the face of disappointment, when you had an idea in your mind and you really wanted it to be like that, you know, your pot, and then it's not, and then just keeping on going, just think, okay, you know, next, you know, and just keep on going and kind of really trying to enjoy like the process rather than the outcome, you know. And that brings us on to number 4, which is appreciating imperfection. So you know, Beth Kempton said it, it's like the imperfection in pottery is kind of what makes pottery so magical. And I just think, you know, I try and carry that with me in my life in general. And, you know, things aren't meant to be perfect. Things are meant to be, you know, just like human, basically. So, yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing you on the next one and wishing you very happy potting.